gacha shouldn't exist only for those who can afford it. In this post by the creator of the game Ultrakill, they argue that as long as you do whatever you can to support the developers of a game, it's okay to pirate it. And I am in no position to argue about this as a consumer. I happen to be privileged enough to buy video games at all, which are luxury items. So who am I to tell people what they can and can't do? I love video games. It's my belief that they are the superior means of storytelling and true art. As Hakata Dev described it, culture. Of course, I want as many people to be able to experience them as possible. Of course, video game developers are also artists who deserve to be compensated for their work.
You steal a car.
Video games aren't a necessity after all, and if you can't afford it, you could always just wait. There's a lot of nuance related to the subject of piracy. I feel conflicted because there's more than one scenario in which someone may pirate a game, and I have varying opinions for each of those scenarios. I'm a complex person, dang it. I have opinions. For the post which started this video, I personally disagree. In relation to modern indie gaming, anyway. If it were a so-called retro game, it would be a completely different story, which I'll talk about later. But modern games which are currently available can be purchased to directly support the developer, especially an indie developer. Like a huge company selling millions no matter what they do, I could care less whether you pirate or not. But for indie developers who are not greedy, who are not too big to fail, they deserve compensation for their work. But that's just me. If you choose to do something else, then I suppose it's none of my business. And if the developer of the game in question has gone on record to be okay with piracy, for their game specifically, do whatever you want. On the topic of retro game piracy, personally, I prefer the feeling of owning the original game on the original hardware, with the official controller inserting the disc or cartridge and playing it. But that's just my opinion, man. Of course there's an option that other people prefer. That option is illegal. Hey, I get it. Sometimes old consoles are way more expensive than they ever should be. Sometimes finding a decent copy of a 30-year-old game costs way more than it did back then, even after adjusting for inflation. And sometimes you just so happen to own a half-decent PC which is capable of running those old games anyway. And those old copies aren't even supporting the original developer since they're all secondhand. Might as well just download an emulator and play it free of charge, right? Right? Well, yes. Legally, I won't advise that you do, but you certainly can. And sometimes it's the smarter decision. Yeah, I may be a Nintendo apologist. World's #1.
Are you sure about that?
But even I can see that in certain scenarios, it would be more understandable and reasonable to not expect the average person to go out of their way to get the original. I mean, the retro companies and resale markets are overpriced, and the company which originally made the game refuses to do anything about it, so go right ahead, buddy. Piracy is, of course, illegal, but it's one of those illegal activities which is so hard to punish. The most a company like Nintendo can do is take down the distributor of the hacked copies. And even that comes with insane backlash. Technically, Nintendo is in the right, but that doesn't make them cool for doing it. How about this? If y'all are pirating games, don't get mad at Nintendo for taking down piracy. They may be a greedy company, but you're breaking the law, dude. Now, you may not be robbing them directly, but they certainly act like it. So I propose a solution to video game companies, which has been proposed many times in the past, and will continue to be proposed many times into the future. The obvious solution is to re-release games, or keep them available in some official capacity. But that alone isn't enough. If they were priced too high, then it would be Nintendo robbing the gamer. So instead, the amount of effort put into keeping each game available on the new console should correlate to how much they charge for it. Let's break it down, companies. There's ports, remasters, and remakes. A port is just taking the original game and boom! It's on a modern console now. No extra work was done, they just took it and re-released it in the same state. A remaster is taking the old game and making it shiny, taking all the old textures and making them on par with modern graphics. But at the core, it's still the same game. A remake is not even using the old stuff. Everything about it is new. Developers started from scratch and recreated the game from the ground up, either to capture the same experience or to reimagine the experience of the original game and make something completely new. There's exactly zero effort needed to port a game. It's basically just an official pirated emulation. The only difficulty with getting it to run on a modern platform would be changing any archaic code or including an official emulator to run it. It wouldn't be any trouble anyway, since all those old games could run on just about anything. Do not charge more than $20 for a basic port, and that is so generous. And if I see Nintendo trying to push old NES games for $5, I swear. Hey, Nintendo, for games like this, take those old virtual console prices and cut them into tiny little pieces. These things are not worth that much anymore. Basically, everyone's played them. The only people who would be buying them is people who just want to own them, especially if they're just digital. Man, if you're making like a physical copy, sure, that's a little expensive. I don't know who's gonna buy that. Maybe make it like a special order, but if you're making it a digital copy, obviously, $1, please. If you remaster a game, making it nice and shiny, obviously you'd need some people to redo the textures and models, or at least upscale them. It doesn't take very much to do this though, so $40 is really pushing it, but I can deal with it. Ideally, it would be less, or you would put more effort into it. Charging full price for this is straight up a scam. What are you doing, Nintendo? If a game is remade in its entirety, it's the only scenario in which it's acceptable to charge full price for it. $50 would be ideal, but $60 is still reasonable when you consider that it would take around the same amount of effort to make a completely new game. You shall not charge $70 for it though, even during the next generation. That would be too far. Doing it this way means that people would have no excuse not to buy it officially, and these companies can be supported for their old games. As it is, resale online isn't making them any money. You guys might as well make money for people wanting to buy retro games. Of course, if that's the case, then people should be able to bring their purchases to each new console. Until that happens, I don't think anyone's in the right. Nintendo shouldn't sue people for pirating games they haven't distributed in forever, and people shouldn't pirate games that they haven't purchased in the first place. But as it stands, until companies do something good about it, feel free to do whatever to the retro games of these massive companies. But if it's okay for y'all to do that, then you gotta agree to not pirate if Nintendo decides to bring things forth to modern console. Agreed? I hope you do. In terms of their modern games, I would prefer that you support the endeavors of companies making them, unless they do something morally dubious. But who gives a shit what I think? Do whatever you want.
Go crazy! Go stupid!
Thank you for watching. I hope Nintendo does something about this. Please consider subscribing to make Nintendo notice this and do something about it. Nintendo listening to their fans? No, that's not gonna happen.